Hello students, welcome to Sosin classes. Based on the demand from different students, this particular topic is being dealt with in today's video, namely the analysis of anthropology syllabus of UPSC main examination. Students would want to know how is the structure of the discipline and how is it that we may begin to study the subject. So based on these queries, we are trying to do with this topic, namely the syllabus analysis of UPSC Anthropology. So this is the syllabus we are looking at. This is the topic we are looking at, UPSC Anthropology Syllabus Analysis, and that is me, and this is the organization and the YouTube channel you are looking at, that is Sosin Classes. This is a subject which deals with different kinds of contents. I thought I would begin with this because we basically in anthropology study different kinds of human populations. This morning I was talking about race to the other students, so I thought I would bring something about race. So this statement, I really loved it. Race disconnected us, religion separated us, politics divided us, and wealth classified us. Means this is a really interesting one with which I would be starting the talk of today. And first of all, let me congratulate you all for having chosen anthropology as your optional subject. So it is like the best kind of a beginning that you must have made in UPSC examination preparation. So taking you ahead from there, I would want to introduce you to two very interesting people. I have always been talking about them in my writings and in my classes. These are the people whom I have studied as a part of my fieldwork in Australian Aboriginal populations. This is one man, Belon, that is the name of this man, coming from this particular Australian Aboriginal tribe called Yugambe. And this was the man who was actually leading the struggle against the European masters. He was trying to fight for the rights of Aboriginal populations. This is a very interesting story which I will be talking about in one of our classes in the future. And I should also remember this lady called Madonna Thompson, who comes from Yugera tribe, that is Australian Aboriginal tribe. She has been of great help to me in my fieldwork among those people in Australian Aborigines, and this is one of their famous dances out there. Let me now take you to this particular syllabus, anthropology syllabus for UPSC. As many of us must have seen the syllabus that runs into huge number of pages in the UPSC syllabus. So, this is rather intimidating to some of the students. But then, once you have taken the decision for anthropology, I think it would really do good for your examination and the selection. With that hope, we are starting to talk about this syllabus. I'm trying to bring to you the simplest possible way, the simple way to study anthropology. This has always been my desire, if at all I can call this my USP. I would want to bring the discipline in a very simplified form to the students so that you learn here the necessary concepts, you get a hold of the subject. We are not here to something like spoon feed kind of, not the traditional way of teaching, but then we would want to see to it that you get a grasp of the subject, a grip of the subject, the subject that actually studies a variety of sub-disciplines as a part of UPSC syllabus. So UPSC is our centrality. Around that centrality of UPSC anthropology, we try to build your information, your understanding of the problems faced by the human populations. And maybe perhaps from the discipline's perspective, we try to bring to you the kind of solutions that are possible. I would want to start off with some of the interesting things. why people actually chose anthropology and what is true about those popular perceptions. Because I believe that one has to go by the informed choice rather than trying to say things that are incorrect. So from that perspective, if I go, if at all you believe that it is a small syllabus, I am afraid not. No, there are many facts involved, no doubt there are many facts involved, but the facts have to be dovetailed with a proper conceptual understanding. There is definitely a diversity of content. This diversity of content will help you maintain the interest in the subject. There's nothing like a monotony that you find in the subject. And then we can actually see to it that you depend on the limited notes for the huge syllabus that you have, and based on the limited note and repeated revisions you should be able to get more marks. And then of course the understanding of the subject is simple, not very complex. We do accept that humans are complex people. The discipline tries to make it simple to understand the complex people, that is the humans. So continuing with the approach to anthropology, there is the second question that is asked popularly by the students, that is whether one should go for the classroom or the self-study. Classroom in the sense that whether we should do some kind of a course or is it okay to do the self-study. It is always the discretion of the student, of course. But the things that you'll have to consider are that this is a very huge syllabus which is not there in 2 or 3 or 4 books, which is a rather dispersed kind of a content that makes it necessary for some assistance, so that you get to know where the content is, where the contemporary things are, how it is being updated. And of course, not simply that. In order to have the conceptual clarity, it may take some bit of time, if at all one is trying to do the self-study. So if you have the time, there's no doubt you would be in a position to do it. And then of course, diversity of content is also something that occasionally becomes a stumbling block for the students to do a self kind of a study. And in UPSC the clock goes on ticking. You'll have to match with the time of preparation, the time, various things that are associated with your preparation. So considering the limitations of time, the diversity of the content, it becomes necessary that maybe some kind of an external assistance becomes important. And even before I actually give you a kind of an analysis, a kind of an exposure to the syllabus, I'll have to tell you this, that is, what is the meaning of anthropology. There are many kind of definitions that are being given, but I think for a beginner like you, I may say that it is understanding of the others. When I say others, it may be the other cultures, other people. So whoever we call the others may be the other races, the other nationalities, whatever kind of. And then understanding of the self also. This is one that now we call it as auto-anthropology. So this is that subject which helps us to understand ourselves in a better way and then understand the others, so that the relation between we and them is properly built and there is a less of friction in living together. And the subsequent questions, if we observe, this is also something that anthropology tries to study, why we are what we are and why others are what they are. I think this is a very great puzzle that many of us must have encountered, that is, why we do what we do and why they do what they do. I mean, the whys are actually something that are tried to be explained in this subject. So the two things there, why and what. These are the two that become the subject matter of anthropology. Some pictures out there for you. These are the Australian Aborigine populations. I mean, one of the interesting things that we are going to study, because race and then tribe, the simple societies being a very central theme of anthropology. It becomes necessary that we get exposed to the so-called simple societies. If at all we have any kind of prejudices towards the so-called others, this is the subject that tries to handle your prejudices and try to provide a proper understanding of the other populations. The picture here shows that there is this white researcher, I'm not naming them, and then you have one of the African tribes being studied, African populations being studied. This is a very typical, the so-called classical anthropological picture, where the non-Western societies try to study, the Western societies try to study the non-Western, maybe the so-called northern societies trying to study the southern ones. This is a very typical picture that explains that anthropology is a study of them. This is a classical one. Just imagine these people having a camera and these people doing their stuff, daily shows, whatever, and then the non-Western community trying to study the Western. Now this is also something that is being picked up these days, as this is now called reverse anthropology. Reverse anthropology is the non-Western one studying the Western. It looks something very interesting. So these are some of the things, of course, we will be studying as a part of the discipline. Now, looking at the UPSC syllabus, for that matter, we see that anthropology is generally divided into global anthropology and Indian anthropology. Global largely is being covered in paper 1. India is the central theme. India is the central theme of paper 2. Your answers in the exam should always be interlinking the global and Indian anthropology. So when it comes to presenting your answers in the exam, you will have to see to it that the paper 1 and paper 2 related information are properly dovetailed based on the requirement. Let me take you to the syllabus for that matter. Now, when I talk about global anthropology, it is divided into general anthropology and physical anthropology, and then when it comes to India, Indian society and tribal anthropology. In general anthropology, we see that this you will have to remember very clearly. Chapters 1 and from 1 to 8 are placed under section 1 of your syllabus generally, and then chapters 9 to 12 we place them in section 2. But you should also remember that sometimes questions are asked interchangeably. Sometimes questions from here are coming up in questions in section 1 and vice versa, but not a great numbers. This is a basic categorization. Similarly, you have in paper 2, you have 5 chapters that are part of Indian society, rest of them are a part of tribal society. This is as far as conventional tribal anthropology is concerned, but also you should keep in view that tribes or simple societies are always the central theme of anthropology. So examples from here and elsewhere, they should always be there in the rest of the areas as well. So you cannot believe that tribal anthropology related example should be given only in this particular segment. I mean, if that is the kind of an understanding you are having, that is a false understanding. Examples related to tribes, simple societies, they have to be there throughout your discipline. Now let me continue with what we have begun with. If you see the syllabus, apart from the section-wise division, Syllabus of Anthropology can be divided into Sociocultural Anthropology, Linguistic Anthropology, Archaeology and Physical Anthropology. These are the proper 4 divisions in the discipline. So this you should keep in mind, and within each of them there might be segments for that matter. For instance, suppose we talk about archaeology. There are 2 major segments, if at all, syllabus wise if we observe. We have global archaeological anthropology, then you have Indian archaeological anthropology. Similarly, in physical anthropology you have the conventional or maybe perhaps classical physical anthropology, new physical anthropology with the applied element therein. Within cultural anthropology, there are various divisions based on which thinker tries to distinguish. There is one thinker who classifies cultural anthropology as familial anthropology, anthropological theory, art related ones, and then religious studies, etc. I mean, I'm not getting into all that stuff right now. In linguistic anthropology, you have similarly here classical linguistics, classical linguistic anthropology, then you have applied linguistic anthropology, the broad division there. And so your syllabus actually deals with each one of them and how one can actually deal with that. Let me take you through the syllabus. In paper 1, I am simply showing here the UPSC syllabus. This is the first chapter. Chapter 1 of paper 1 is the very wide one, very huge topic. And we see that in this particular chapter, diverse things are there. And I would want to start with a caution here. This particular topic, that is 1.1, meaning and scope of anthropology, this is the one that you should be doing towards the end of your syllabus. Never start with this topic in the beginning. And when it comes to these various branches, you will be studying them as and when you are dealing with the related topics, along with the related topics. Say for example, you may be studying something to do with psychology in your discipline. So when you do the psychology related ones, you try to come here and do how anthropology is related with behavioral sciences and kind of. Similarly, when you do with maybe perhaps medical anthropology or disease studies in anthropology, you would come back here and try to understand the relation. So when you do this particular topic, you will not be doing exclusively, but then you would be doing along with the related ones. These are the main branches. That's what I was showing to you in that picture a little while ago. And these topics, they have to be done. So for example, if you are starting to study biological anthropology, when you are starting to study biological anthropology, this particular part you would be covering there. I mean, as an exclusive topic, if it is given small or big. So similar to this topic also has to be done as and when you come to those related areas. For example, linguistic anthropology. You have a special chapter called chapter 7 in paper 1. When you do that particular topic, you will come here and do linguistic anthropology. Now coming here from topic 1.4 to 1.8, other than topic 1.7, we see that this whole chunk deals with evolution. Okay. When I say evolution, I talk about one, that is organic evolution. Second is evolution of a human from the other life forms. Maybe perhaps, it is popular to say maybe from some kind of last common ancestor of apes and man to how Homo sapiens must have evolved. This is one topic. And then thirdly, how cultural evolution had happened. It is here we are going to study various lithic and metal ages. So this forms the crux of 1.4 to 1.8 minus 1.7. And this entire segment is very, very significant for anyone to score well and be in the list. So keep that in mind. So it is here we are going to see here phylogenetic status, so various kinds of pre-human ancestors. This one is largely about the basis of biological basis of life. This is one topic from where you do not find much of questions coming up, but then as a routine, people should have some kind of a basic understanding, but then even if some questions are being asked, they may be from topics like mutation and protein synthesis. Don't go too very technical in there. Have the basic understanding and see how each of them are put to use in anthropology. This is the other one I was talking about, that is cultural anthropology. We have various cultural ages, then dating methods. All this is archaeology for that matter. Chapter 2 onwards, we see chapter 2 is largely about some of the basic concepts, like it tries to explain to us what culture is, and some of the very popular concepts are there, like social stratification, social institutions. So these are very highly concept related ones that make it necessary for us to have a very comprehensive understanding of how different thinkers have explained. So do not even start your subject with these. Many times what students try to do is because it looks very attractive. I mean, most of you must have taken the subject looking at topics like marriage, etc. But then you will have to look at whether they are scoring, whether they should be done in the beginning of your preparation or not. So my idea, my suggestion is, do not begin with them. These actually will be built as a part of your anthropological theory. So here you will not be doing them separately, but then when you do anthropological theory, you will be taking these up. So you have the topic of marriage, you have the topic of family and kinship. These are the ones that have to be answered based on, number one, you should have proper definitions of them. Then you should look at how they must have originated. You should actually know the categories of them. And then perhaps what are the kinds of functions each of them do with, and then what are the dysfunctions, and then perhaps you see the contemporary aspect of each of them. Continuing with the sociocultural anthropology, you have here the study of economy, the study of political systems. In such kind of topics, what we are looking at is, popularly in anthropology, evolution of them, and how the simple societies, economies have to be studied, how the simple societies, political organizations have to be studied. It is here we see that Western versus non-Western perspective, number one. And second one is how, in countries like India, how pre-colonial, colonial and post-colonial economies, polities have been. Now, this is one other significant area in the discipline, that is religion, belief systems. That was always at the central discussion of anthropology. But then you will have to see what is it that you study in religion. In religion, we are not really looking at which is the correct religion, which is the religion to follow or not. Rather than that, we try to focus on how the belief system has evolved, how religion must have evolved. So for that we see the evolutionary theories, as you could see here. What are the psychological understandings of religion? What is the utilitarian understanding, functional understanding of religion? And then perhaps when you go to paper 2, you have different kinds of religions being studied, that we will be seeing in a while from now. This particular chapter forms anthropological theory, chapter 6 of paper 1, anthropological theory. Many times we suggest people to begin their study with this. If not, maybe perhaps you have Indian social system, from which also you can actually study. Elsewhere, I had done one video earlier, how to begin to study anthropology. There I have actually spoken about what could be the chapters with which you can begin. So this actually qualifies to be one of the beautiful topics to begin with, and because this gives you the soul, the crux of the discipline. You have the chapter 8 here, which goes hand in hand with chapter 6. So generally those two have to be done together. And this is the one I was talking about, linguistic anthropology. A little while ago I was talking about. This was the last topic that was added in the revised UPSC syllabus. Cute one, small one, but really scoring one. And from here you are actually getting into biological anthropology. So in biological anthropology we are actually dividing this into one, that is chapter 9, and then you have 10, 11 and 12. Within 9 you have topics from 9.1, 9.2 and then perhaps 9.3 as one category, 9.4. You have diverse ones. 9.5 is a distinct one, 9.6 is a distinct one. So each of them here have got their own separate content. So these are related ones. We put them in one group. This is one particular group. And then you have each one of them to be put in separate categories altogether. Now if at all I begin with this one, this has some bit of core biological element, but then you have this divided into population genetics, majorly population genetics, and then we here would see how the various methods of genetic study of man, that's where we see very interesting things. For example, twin studies are there, or maybe perhaps chromosomal studies, cytogenetic studies are there, or maybe perhaps immunological studies are there, foster child studies. So how these can explain the inheritance of the characteristics in human, that forms the crux of this particular topic. Now you have 9.3, which is largely to do with population genetics. So you see very interesting things coming up, how the genetic frequency of particular populations gets changed. So very, very interesting, and this chapter can score you well. Then you have 9.4, that rather is a very contemporary one. It is here that in anthropology, huge lot of studies are being conducted. And this is where I caution the students. Suppose a question comes up in Down syndrome. It is not simply that you are explaining the reasons, you are explaining the treatment or a cure whatsoever if it is possible. But then you should also be incorporating the whole lot of anthropological studies in order to make your answer look to be something that you have answered in anthropology, not in the core biology. Now from here, if you observe 9.5 is a distinctive one, race and racism. This you will actually be studying along with several other chapters elsewhere in your syllabus. That is in paper 2 of, in chapter 2 and chapter 6 of paper 2 also you will be using them. So it is something like, interconnected one coming to paper 1 and 2. You have the other ones here, like you have genetic markers. They look to be crude biological ones, but here you will have to understand this, how these are different in different cultural and socio-economic groups. That's where you will have to give the anthropological references. So for example, HB levels, how they occur. So you actually basically give a definition, understanding of HBs, but then you should have to pick up populations like number 1, the tribe, maybe specific caste groups, specific religious groups, specific regional populations. So based on these, you should be able to generate examples of how the variation occurs. Then you have 9.7. This is another very significant area, that is ecological anthropology. Ecological anthropology is the one that helps us to know how humans get adapted to new conditions, new environments. I mean, this is something that is of a very current significance, with people traveling and then people trying to scale high mountains, and Everest is something like a picnic spot for us these days. And then with the jobs that you're doing in different places, maybe perhaps you're traveling, and hence epidemiological anthropology is one. The new name for the traditional name of medical anthropology. So you try to study here various diseases and how the diseases occur in different populations, what's the kind of cure people are looking at, kind of. Coming here, from 10 onwards, 10, 11 and 12, they come in the core applied physical anthropology. So 10 is the one where you study the human growth, a fun kind of a thing. I mean, these 3 chapters, you get majority of the questions from these 3 chapters, and hence you're not supposed to neglect them. So you see how you must have grown, kind of, and various factors of affecting growth, age theories. I mean, these are very, very interesting ones. Fun learning at the same time. Writing is also very, very interesting, with good lot of pictures, good lot of examples from anthropology. So try to see to it that whenever you are picking up a topic, there has to be some kind of anthropological reference that is readily available. You have chapter 11, which is actually a curtailed one when compared to the previous syllabus. This is rather based on the census. So whenever you are reading census, you actually get information inputs for these, like you have demographic theories. And there are interesting ones here: fertility, fecundity, how they change, and then contemporary discussions of menarche and menopause. They form part of this. This is once again very current one, and you find huge data related to anthropological case studies from various populations, and hence this is also a chapter that is not simply interesting but also very, very scoring. You have chapter 12, which is applied anthropology, which has very diverse and contemporary things. I personally love this forensic anthropological studies. And then you have the other ones, like how anthropology is put to use in defense, how sports anthropology is, and kind of various new topics. So this is one hotspot in anthropology, which actually is indispensable for scoring high. So I mean, that in brief is a small journey starting from general anthropology to biological anthropology in paper 1. We will be dealing with paper 2 in one other talk, and after having done that, then I will be guiding you to see which are the topics that should go should go together. I mean, which chapters have to be done together, and maybe perhaps a brief idea I will give you about how to wade through various topics, so that people who would want to have a better understanding, whether you would want to study by yourself or study along with me, you will be in a position to understand that. So that's where I leave you for the day. Keep watching Sosin classes, and please do subscribe to the Sosin classes channel, and then please visit us on our website sosinclasses.com, and keep writing to us. Be blessed. Happy time. Thank you.